All right, so wanted to hit a topic really quickly, which is background images. And so with CSS, we started doing things like background colors, and quickly we'll find out that we can do images in the background, you know, kind of for visual, you know, just things that look good, right? And so decorative background images. And so I just kind of did a fun little cool background images, and it doesn't really matter. Most a lot of background images, they're going to be large in size. Doesn't really matter what image we use. You know, when it comes to good images, you want something high resolution. So, you know, obviously something like that I can already see that's pixelated. All right. And so, you know, you could rip an image off of Google, and that's fine. There are stock photo sites. The one that I use, well, let's see if they even have a list on the top stock photo sites, and this really is not. You could check all these out. iStock. And these are, you know, images that are out there for you to use for free. Yeah, none of these are. Let me, been a while since I've suggested this site, but let's, there it is. Yeah, this is just one of many. I tend to like this site. They've got videos that you can use on your site for free, and photos. So, you know, I don't know, just find a fun background image, and again, I'm making this a bigger deal than it needs to be, but let's go ahead and download this image. And let's download the large size image. And I'll put this in the appropriate spot. To belabor this anymore. Homework, I believe I put it in chapter 4. And I'll make a called images. And I'll just make this image named smoke. Whoops. I meant to rename that. Smoke.jpg. Okay. Okay, so to do a background image, let's just say we want to put this in the header. And we're going to target now. Let's do a little bit of pathing here. This is relevant. We're in, let's just say we're writing external CSS. We're going to target the header, and we'll do background color first of red. And you might notice if you don't have any content in your header, it's really hard to see any sort of background. Like there's no red here because there's no content. As soon as you put like a H1 inside of the header, you're going to see that now there's background of content. And so, you know, either you make the header, you know, you fill it with content, and then the header is as big as the content that's within it. It's basically as tall and 100% wide, because an H1 is 100% width. Or you can kind of come in here and you could say, okay, width of, you know, 50 viewport width, or let's just say 100 viewport width, and height of 30 viewport height. And now you're kind of manually saying, okay, make it 100% wide and 30% of your viewport. And let's now also give it that background color that background color of red. And now you've got a header that has a dimension like that. Okay, so okay, well that's cool, but what about, we're not doing background colors anymore, we're doing background image. And again, now I'm in a styles.css folder that is a subfolder of index. And then this is my root homework folder, and then inside of the root is an images folder with smoke.jpg. So how do I get to smoke.jpg? Well, turns out this background image has a URL, and we got to give it a path. And so we could do // says go up a directory, and then go down into the images directory, and then go into smoke. So this background image URL property is where you provide the path to the image. That's gonna work. Okay, yeah, that works. We've got some smoke and we've got a background image, and that's cool. Turns out if your image is actually kind of small, I want to show you what happens if you have a small image. In that, very much like when you set like a Windows background, it kind of defaults to tiling. You know, or at least it used to. I don't know if they do anymore, but you set a background image and a default setting is to tile. These background images, their default setting is to tile. And so, you know, if I had, well, let me go back to Pexels, and I searched for background images, and I found this smoke. And I'm going to download the small. That's still pretty big. Small smoke. And again, if I just look at this image, I mean it's really not that small. Dimensionally, you literally got to open them up in the details and see that this one is 1920 pixels by 248 pixels, and the small one is smaller than that, 640 by 6. So even more still, I'm just going to make this even smaller just to show my point. If I edit this, let's see if I can open with, I'm going to open it with Paint. And because Paint has this resize tool where I can just say, okay, I want this to be 100 by 106. So I'm gonna make it real small. Okay, and let me go back to my code just to clean this up, and I'll say small smoke. And now I'll go back to my page to show you, okay, it's the background image is repeating. So a lot of times, with the background image, it's also pretty common to say background repeat, no repeat. And that's just going to do something like that. In which case, if that's really what you want, you just want the image once, well, then you might start talking about, well, where do you want it? And so that's where background position comes into play. Background position, it accepts text values. And so the first is kind of the x-axis, and the second word is the y-axis. Remember, x-axis goes across, y-axis goes vertical. And so if you say kind of on the right-hand side across, you know, the center, so, you know, that's going to put it right center, and these actually can work together just so you can see how it is in fact right center. If you add a background color of like aqua, for example, you could see that that's vertically centered and it's on the right. Okay, so background images, now a lot of times you'll see something like center, and that's just going to put that there. Okay, it's also something like I could do this on my header and like all my H1s, and I can have a bunch of H1s, and for every H1 Is that right? On all my headers and all my H1s, yeah, we're doing all this. But basically, for every H1, you'd get a background image. It's kind of what I was trying to show. And so sometimes I see that being used like, remember, this is selecting multiple elements and putting background images on all of them. Again, it's kind of, its default is to tile, but you can say not to repeat. You can also say repeat the y-axis, and you kind of get that going on. Repeat the x-axis, and you got that going on. Those are the main kind of properties and values for CSS backgrounds. There is a shorthand, which is just the background property. And with this, you can provide a color like blue, a URL, like I demonstrated before. The URL goes in quotes. We could say go to the root, images, small smoke, no repeat, and center. I think it's center, and produce a similar result. It didn't like my center. Let me kind of go here. Let me take rid of this H1. It doesn't like my no repeat. Oh, close my parenthesis and not close it there. Now let's take a look, and there we go. Okay, so I just want to take a quick video, cover background images and the various properties that go into them, to kind of help you out.